Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first of many Total Aquatic Programming Pool Chats. Through our Pool Chat program, we're going to be bringing in people that have graduated from the Build a Pool program and get their information, their wise advice, and find out how they went through the process of going from dream stage to reality. So today we're welcoming NL Aquatics. We have Tyler and Peter with us today. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning.
And we're going to give them just a quick couple minutes here. If you guys each want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background. We'll go ahead and start with Tyler.
I'm Tyler. I am the aquatics director at NL Aquatics. I work hand in hand with our owner, Pete Holcroft. Pete is my mentor of many things, life, swimming, and a lot of other stuff. But yeah, this is what we do. I also help coach our national team with Pete and involved in day-to-day operations with the facility and the swim team.
Yeah, Tyler's our Swiss Army knife. He does literally everything for our program. He's indispensable. We need him to do everything. So we call him our Swiss Army knife. My name is Peter Holcroft. I am the owner of NL Aquatic Center. I also founded SJAC with one of my other former coaches, Greg Barone. I'm now the board president of that. And myself and my two business partners, Scott Peters and Sean Watson, had attended the Build a Pool conference, which changed our lives forever. So.
Hope it's good.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I giggle because, my wife would be probably going, yeah. And I'm sure you guys, being a family, going through building pools and construction, it's to be able to do it,
Most definitely. It takes unique families to be able to work together in any business, I think. So I want you guys to go back to 2014. Obviously, we've talked a little bit off air about the circumstances of that conference, at the bad snows and everything else you guys went through. But before you went into the Build a Pool, what were your expectations of it, and what did you want to get out of it?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. So for us, I guess I shouldn't make a general assumption, but I will a little bit, because I would assume most of the participants are like us. We were a little naive, right? So our initial response was, we have this team, it's growing, we need more space, we want to build a pool, and the pool's just a box, and it's pretty easy, let's just do it, right? Where we were. And so we show up to this conference, my two business partners and myself, and we sit down, and Sue and Mick start going on, and we're just blown away. The whole, like, you could see us just like ripping up our business plan and throwing it out the window, going, wait a second, first off, it's not just a box, and second off, competitive swimming is only one aspect of the 4 pillars that we need to worry about. So to me, the Build a Pool conference really just set us up for success, to build a successful aquatic program, but really helped us to educate us on what we needed to do to be a successful program, and not just be concerned with one facet, which was the competitive team, which is an important facet, but it's not the only facet, right? And so for us, when we went into that, we just know that we needed more pool space, and that's what we did. So
I like to make the comparison of the Build a Pool process, not necessarily the conference, but building an aquatic center, of like going to Disney World. You can show up and buy the tickets and do all the rides and stuff, but you're probably not going to have as much fun as if you hadn't planned in advance to know how the crowds are going to be.
yeah.
That's sort of your feasibility study. And, so when you think about your project, and you said, we sat there and ripped up our business plan, how different do you think your facility would have looked and operated had you not done the Build a Pool?
I mean, I don't know what would have happened. I mean, our organization is one of the things I'm really proud of, and I tell this to the group all the time, is we adapt and overcome pretty well. When things are thrown at us, we come up with really good solutions to those issues. But my gut was telling me that if we did not go to the Build a Pool conference, we would have been bankrupt, because we were only focused on one side of the aquatic environment, and the other sides are super important to providing a complete experience to not just our swim families, but to the community, which is super important. And then the other piece is too, like the lesson program, which was kind of a cast off at that point in time. Like, we know we needed it because we wanted to have that flow into the swim team piece. But once we went through the Build a Pool conference, we actually expanded our lesson pool. We added more space to it. We added our SwimX pool for our therapy and exercise. So to me, it was just like, if we didn't go to the Build a Pool conference and we weren't educated on the right way of doing it, my gut is telling me that we would have been bankrupt, and it wouldn't have worked, just because we were too focused on one aspect of the aquatic environment, which you can't, to be able to be healthy. You just can't. You got to focus on all of it.
And I agree with that. I think that a lot of people in the general aquatics world are very focused on their area. You know, whether it's, you know, you talk to a swim coach and they want this, this, and this is what I want for my pool. And you talk to somebody and learn to swim, and it's going to be something different. How did you get the 4 pillars to really kind of work together? Because we do see that a lot in aquatic facilities, that there is this back and forth push and pull. I want more time for the swim team, and I need more open swim time. And I see the aquatics director laughing, because he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
I'll let Tyler tackle this one, but to me, as the owner, I find that if everyone is unhappy, then that's good. That means that we're doing our job correctly, right? If everyone's complaining about they want this or that, then that means that I'm not playing favorites in everyone. But I'll let Tyler tackle that, because he deals with it on a day-to-day basis all the time.
That's one of my favorite headaches to deal with. You know, it's everyone kind of has their role, right? And we're very much a team atmosphere. So everyone kind of has their lane, if you will. And we like to say, you know, kind of stay in your lane. But that's one of the things where everyone has their priorities, and something, if you're running day-to-day operations on the team side and someone's running day-to-day operation on the lesson side, each is equally important, or the masters team or whatever. Everyone has their importance in the program. So it's more of a matter of what makes the most sense from a financial standpoint, but also from keeping our membership happy, for making sure that this big wheel, I always say, like, you know, yes, we are fully immersed in that national team, because that is what we do. But that's just one spindle on the wheel, and the wheel has to keep on turning. So lessons are just as important as our national team, and same thing with our aquatic therapy. But it does become a struggle, where it's a great problem to have when you run out of lane space and you have to figure out what to do. And we like to call it the Tetris of the pool schedule. But you know, that Tetris game really does make, you know, everyone have equal time and be able to be happy and successful in their own lanes.
So obviously we have to ask, it's been the topic for the last year, COVID. You guys talked about the fact that you're pretty agile and able to, you know, come up with great ways to deal with these situations. So, you know, shortly, what did you guys do this year to keep yourselves, you know, functional, operational, and dealing with the COVID issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So to me, one of the things, you know, it's been great to be able, as Tyler said, to be a team and use all of our strengths wisely. So my wife in her previous life was a TV producer. So for us, you know, when COVID hit, we used it as an opportunity to start creating videos of how we were going to have safety protocols. And then we also started to look and research with, the CDC, all the health organizations, the health department, and started really developing our own safety protocols. And then obviously that has changed. It's a very fluid situation, but we were trying to stay ahead of the curve in terms of, hey, look, when we get back, these are the safety protocols. And we thought, today is such a visual world that my wife, we got together and we started doing videos of showing our people, our community, the swim community in South Jersey, of what we were going to do and how we were going to handle it. And then people could see the videos exactly how we were. So to me, we tried to use our time very wisely. We tried to use the strengths of all of our team members and to stay ahead of the curve. And it's been pretty good, but in the same breath, you have to stay very fluid with everything because it's just coming at you a mile a minute. And so to me, though, that's one of the things I feel like our organization does pretty well. We seem to adapt and overcome the situation and try to come up with different solutions. So when we have our team meetings, people just throw out ideas all the time. Now, a lot of times I'll throw out ideas and people just laugh at me, and Tyler's laughing now because I guess my brother and I tend to have some nutty ideas. My wife always calls us the thought factory or idea factory. But, we throw out ideas and eventually some of those ideas morph. So to me, it's just throwing stuff up against the wall, not fearing failure, just throwing it up there, seeing how it works. And then if it works, continue to adapt that idea until it becomes to fruition and then being able to implement it with action. So that's kind of what we're about.
I just want to add to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. Pete says we like to throw things up against the wall, and it may sound like it's not organized. We are very much OCD organizers and big planners. We have A, B, C, D plans. So throw it up against the wall. Part of my daily job is Pete has an idea. I'd be like, all right, figure it out. How do we do it? Get it done. I don't care. It's due by here. This is what we do. And we very much do adapt and overcome and move with that tempo. And that kind of helps move us in that right direction and really was beneficial during COVID. That was one of our things to be really proud of during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with the COVID was being able to adapt to the lane space, right? And having the coaches to be able to do it. So, instead of having, our platinum group have, X lane space, now we've have to, in the last restrictions, we've had to have, 4 different times for our national group to be able to do lap swimming at. So it's one of those things where, you had to adapt and overcome and be able to do it, or the facility would have gone bankrupt, and we don't want that. So,
but one of the nice things that, being a part of a family run business where Pete gives us a lot of that leadership where, we're not afraid of failure. And if we're not learning from our mistakes, that's shame on us, but kind of learning from it and then adapting and making sure you're moving forward. So when there's things where, hey, we need to keep, fine tuning this, that's for the greater good. And it really kind of helps us grow as an overall company.
And I really like the fact that you guys talked about not fearing failure and always having new ideas to move forward. I think one of the things that we see a lot in not only this specific industry, but in the health club industry is tend towards complacency. I'm making money, I'm doing okay. I don't really need to come up with anything new, but people don't see that backslide of the 1 and 2 people leaving because there's nothing new there. So what do you take out of the COVID experience? Is there anything that you guys instituted policy-wise, procedure-wise, that you're going to keep after we go back to, and I hate the new normal, but whatever normal may be?
Tyler, I see you smiling.
No, this is all you, Pete. This is all you.
Look, there is definitely some positives that have come out of that, in terms of, less swimmers per lane, starting on either end. you know, having the kids be more responsible. There's a whole bunch of new procedures that, you know, we're going to implement or keep as we're going forward in this. You know, one of the points that you hit on was not being complacent, and we talk about that all the time. We talk about that all the time of, even though, you know, we're doing well, it's not time to be complacent. Like, do we need to have a better social media piece? What can we do better? How can we train better? How can we fit better, you know, swimming pieces into the structure that we have, which we feel really good about. So we're always constantly trying to, you know, we have a set structure, but within that structure, being able to reinvent ourselves and continue to move forward on that. So there are some things from COVID that we really like and we're going to keep. And there's other things that we're looking very forward to getting back to normal. You know, to me, one of the pieces that we miss is the social piece, because, you know, our facility, our team is based on relationships. You know, I tell the coaching staff all the time, if you think you're in the swim or aquatic business, you're sadly mistaken. What we're in the business of is building relationships and connecting to people. And that's the first and foremost. So to me, because of COVID, we've lost a little bit of just that social interaction, which I'm excited to be able to get back, hopefully, at some point. But in the same breath, it also has helped us to be able to connect, where, like, having meetings on Zoom, I know people are a little zoomed out, but to me, sometimes it helps, where we used to have meetings at the pool all hours of the night. So now I have more of an opportunity to be with my family, to have a Zoom meeting at the house where I can have it last a half hour and then be done. And I can walk downstairs now and put my girls to bed instead of having to be at the club and then coming back. So to me, there are some really good positives that have come out of that. And there are some definitely some things that we would like to get back to, you know. So Tyler, anything?
I would just pick up on definitely that social media piece. We've always been pretty proud of our social media presence. But during COVID, we really had to keep everyone engaged. And again, like Pete was saying, everyone's kind of zoomed out. So we came up with like fun challenges and activities that they can do as a family while follow us along on social media, so we could still have our family relationship with our team. And another thing I just want to touch on is, as like coaches, you know, we practice what we preach kind of thing in our organization, where we're saying we're not afraid of failure, adapt and overcome. These are things that like we live in our program, and it is very much relationship based. So when we're talking about, you know, we're not afraid to fail, we are living that as well. And that's really the thing, where it's very authentic and real. We talk about relationships and how we like really want to invest in our swimmers and our families and our senior population, our Special Olympics population. And we mean that. And that's really set from the top from Pete and Kristen. And it's really special to have in an organization.
Good. So I want to switch gears just real quickly. One of the things that we hear a lot when we talk to people after they've been operating a facility for a couple of years is I wish I would have done this, or gosh, now that I know this. And we're seeing a lot actually when we have discussions with people around building pools post-COVID. You know, how do I keep my spectators away, and how do I do this and that? What do you guys find that, now that you've operated this facility, what little things would you have changed, updated, made a little bit different? And obviously the COVID piece is kind of an outlier to this.
Yeah, I mean, to go with the start off with the building, if I had to do it over again, I would definitely have, we do move at a very quick tempo within our organization, but that was one piece that if I had to do it over again, that I would have made sure the funding and the project, you know, was funded a little bit better. You know, there was 3 families that did it. We're not millionaires, right? We've saved. And so to me, I would have rather have taken a deep breath, did the funding a little bit better. That way we could have had the whole pool done at one shot and then move forward. So to me, that's really where, you know, new people that are building pools need to really take a deep breath and just say, okay, we know you want to get the pool done and everything set, but in the same breath, being able to have the funding, get the project all together, and then move forward, so the project's done in a timely manner is really important. To me, it's funny because we did it in phases, and the first pool that we built was the larger pool, our 12 lane by 25 meter by 25 yard pool. If I had to do it over again, I would have started off with the lesson pool and the SwimX pool. The smaller the pool, the more money you make, right? And people don't realize that, but the lesson pool is the pool that really should have been built first, and we should have worried about the other stuff later. So to me, if I had to do it over again, I would have taken a deep breath and made sure that the funding was there, because it does put an extra strain. And I know that, Mick and Sue and I had talked about this. I've had coaches that have called me and said, "Hey, Pete, you build a pool, how do you do it?" And the first question I say to them is, "How are you married?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Are you married?" And they're like, "Well, yes." "Do you have a good relationship?" "What are you talking?" I'm like, "Listen, if you don't have a good relationship and your wife or a significant other, your partner, is not in the foxhole with you and not on the same page, you will be divorced." I'm just letting you know. And I am very, very fortunate that I have a strong family that has supported us, not only on my side, but on my wife's side. Her family is out of this world. And if we didn't have that, it would have been crazy. So to me, that's number one, and making sure that the funding's there and taking our time. I'm not one, I like to move at a, Tyler knows this, I like to move at a pretty quick tempo on things. So I don't like it to be stagnant. So I need to listen to my own advice. So to me, that would be, the most important thing, to take your time and make sure the funding is there, make sure that foundation is really set, and then slowly start to move forward as you go through.
And Tyler, from an operational standpoint, anything that I know that I always go into facilities and I'm like, gosh, I wish they had better Wi-Fi, or at a swim meet, it's like, that's a silly place to have the timing stand, those kind of things.
Yeah, it's funny because I always see an old picture or something of how the pool was set up, like when we first started, and just to see how it was and where we're at now and the amount of things that change, I really think goes to that not being complacent and always wanting to update. It's funny because when we first started doing swim meets, well, we needed a hospitality room. So, well, what are we going to do? Well, we had a part of phase 2 was the lesson pool. So we had an unfinished part of the lesson pool, which we actually wound up putting makeshift walls, turning that into a hospitality meeting room, extra dry land space out of nowhere, literally just pulling these ideas out of thin air. And, what is our need at this very moment and how do we do it? Let's get it done, figure it out. And as Pete says, I want it done by X time. Okay, let's go. And that's the cool part about it.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is the piggyback off your, there's two kind of ideas. The one is, with the pool, building the pool, but the other thing, swimming forward, I really think that our sport needs to change in terms of, how we host meets. And the original game plan that we had was that we wanted to do what we call quad meets. So we wanted us and 3 other teams, and we wanted to shrink the amount of time for meets closer to like a basketball or soccer game. So we were looking for more of like an hour and a half, 2 hours, turn them out. Because to me, it needs to be more family friendly instead of these 4 to 8 hour monster meets on the weekends. It needs to be turned out. The problem was that no one would come to our meets because we had that idea, right? That everyone, swimming is very set in terms of what they want. And this is kind of how you have to do it. And no one really wanted to kind of think ahead of the game and do something different. So we had to change because we were going to die if we didn't. So we started doing longer meets. We try to keep within a 2.5 hour range, right, for our meets now. But because of COVID, when it hit, now we were forced to do smaller and a lot more meets. But now all of a sudden, the parents and coaches are saying, well, wait a second, we kind of like this idea. We like that it's you have an age group, you come in, you do it for an hour and a half and you get to leave and you have your whole weekend ahead of you. You don't have to spend a whole weekend away. So for us, one of the things we would like to move forward with was to change the way these meets are run, because I think that the less time they have, the more people will be involved with the sport, because you don't have this super long time. The other piece is that we made a partnership with this company called Live Barn, and they do all sorts of field events where they have their cameras, and people can watch them on their phones or iPads. So to me, the future of swimming, or I would like it, is more of like the ISL, where they're doing an hour and a half meet and they're done. But you can go watch it on high def TV wherever you like. So for us, I would love to be able to say, hey, parents, you can go over to like Iron Hill Brewery or Ott's, and you could have a drink and food, and you can go watch this meet. And, with Live Barn, you can fast forward, you can rewind, you can, do clips, you can send it to your email, you can send it to college recruiters. It's a fantastic tool. So to me, like, wouldn't you love to be able to watch your kids meet, like in the comfort of even on your own home on a big screen, and see it, and you could do clips and send them all over the place. To me, it's a better experience. And then what we found too, with less people on deck, we were having less DQs. Kids were not as stressed out, and so the meet ran a lot smoother. So the experience, like the coaches were, and kids were saying, we love this. This is less stressful. So I think part of it, I know that we're never going to be able to say, you can't come on deck, but it would be nice to be able to have another piece of where you could have that, smaller meets, quicker meets, and have that. I think that's the way the future of swimming should go, more of the ISL type model.
Yeah.
Nick and Sue, do you have any questions?
Well, I got a comment on that, is that as far as we know, there's about 270,000 pools that we would classify as commercial in the United States. That doesn't mean they're 25-yard, 25-meter, but they're usable for both programming, and about 60% of those are usable for some kind of competition. I'm thinking this has never been a spectator sport. I'm sorry, it just isn't. It's a sport that if you have someone involved, you're passionately attached to the whole experience. All right. We have all these 6-lane high school pools that have seating for 5 people, and we're not using them effectively. This is a phenomenal thing that I don't need spectators. In fact, I can use some of my spectator area for actual swimmer seating if I know what I'm doing during the design phase, for wet bodies being in an area that are not normally designed for wet bodies. And that we can have the virtual experience with grandma and grandpa, who can't get out anyway, watching this. So I think this is another side of any project, is to look at, do we need 1,500 seats? Because the average seat, spectator seat, runs between $1,500 and $2,000 per seat. I know people always say, well, hey, guess what? I know a bench doesn't cost that. Yeah, it does. If you take a circle, a 24-inch circle, and take it all the way up to the ceiling, you also affect how you get in and out of the spectator area, your parking, the amount of bathroom spaces you need. So every seat has a cost to operate, and it doesn't necessarily have a recoverable cost, because we can't host meets, 4 and 5 times a week. So I think this is part that the good side of being forced into this limited experience with people in pools, that I think we really need to explore. Do you want a $500,000 scoreboard, or would you rather see it on your phone or on your laptop?
I agree.
It's just, these are things that when we look at new design, we plan for the future so we can retrofit and adapt. but we try not to have this affect the initial capital budget. And that's what we've been looking at since last January, when this thing all was apparent that things are going to change. So I think you guys are on the forefront of this. Keep track of what you're doing. We've always been a fan of the 2.5 to 3 hour experience.
Yeah.
I think that recreation and swim meets need to combine. After you do a 2.5 hour meet, you know, why aren't we having an hour family swim, you know, afterwards for people that, the brothers, the sisters, the moms, the dads, and say, hey, the pool's open for both the visiting team and this here, or however you work it, and start including recreation with competition as a reward type thing. So aquatics, the whole experience is built and evolves.
Yeah, I mean,
have a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on, you were saying about like when you're planning out your space, just making sure that it has the versatility of that space. You know, there's certain things where, you know, we have our 4 walls on our competitive side. It's like, well, this is all usable space. So can we use this for dry land? Can we use it for spectator seating? Can we bring in and have larger meets and stuff and use it for this multi-purpose or exercise on land? But one of the things that, you know, Pete, myself, and one of our coaches is actually an engineer developed were power towers that hook up to a pull-up bar, which aren't just used for one purpose of the power tower. You could also use it for dry land for the pull-ups. There's also climbing ropes you could use. And just that kind of model really is an example of that versatility of you have limited space and it's what you do to maximize that space, which really is important when trying to make money.
yeah, and just to let you know on that power tower idea, I was laughed at when I brought that up in the meeting.
I left.
So everyone laughed at me at first, right? So, and it was funny because that came to fruition because I was talking about, we didn't have space on the deck to have power towers and we wanted it. So we were trying to figure out how can we have power towers and do it. So we decided to put them up on the wall. It just so happened that through our relationship with another coach, we found that he does welding as a hobby. So he welded us power towers there, but we would have never known that. We just started talking about this is what we wanted, and then he designed it and we put them up on the walls, and now we have 4 power towers up there that can fit 8 kids, and it's been great. But that was the idea. I know that my brother and my wife and Tyler were all like, you're absolutely out of your mind. Like, that's a crazy idea. And I'm like, well, this is what we need. But to piggyback off what you were saying too, Nick, about the meets, is that one of the things that people have to understand is like that front gate is a revenue stream for meets, right? That's one of your main revenue streams. But our idea was that with getting people off the deck, you know, being able to set up relationships with restaurants to be able to get maybe a percentage of the food or drink at their restaurant. And then also too, like we've been talking with Live Barn, is to be able to do sponsorship on the app or on their framework. So to me, it's like, you know, yeah, you might not have spectators there, but we know when there are breaks. So we would like to be able to set it up as like a small TV station, right? So you could have it where there's a break in the action because you know that after the 50 freeze, you're going to have like a couple minutes where you would have a commercial pop up of whatever. Maybe it's Iron Hill or maybe it's Odds, and it comes up and that way you're having your own sponsorship, your own TV station on there. And that could generate more for the loss of revenue at the front gate, but you're going to gain more because there's going to be more sponsorship. You know, you get a piece of, you know, the Live Barn, you get a piece of maybe the food and drink, and then that way the experience is better. To us, we are more into like the relationship, the customer service piece. It's not, you know, we're just trying to shove people into this and try to make money. We would like the experience to be a super positive experience, not just for the coaches and swimmers, but also for the spectators. So that's kind of where we're trying to push it. And, you know, sometimes it's a little bit uphill battle just because people like what they like, and USA Swimming, you know, kind of is a little archaic in kind of the way we're thinking. We need to, I think, as coaches and facility managers need to push a little bit harder to change that thought process.
In your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think coaches are definitely some of the most creative people out there. I know from our years of doing things that when we would see something that we'd like, and then you go get the quote for it, you're like, geez, that's a little more hefty than I was wanting to
Yep.
pay. And then you go out and you figure out how to do it yourself.
That's
So
right.
I definitely think that that's something that coaches have, and that's a good thing in the facility side. I've got one more question for you guys, and I'm going to split this question into to kind of one for you, Tyler, and one for you, Peter. It's the same question, but what is your best advice? And so for Peter, it would be, what is your best advice for somebody that's in the build process? And for Tyler, it's, what is your best advice for somebody that's in the operate stage now, that they're, you know, what is that one piece that you want to give out to people? We'll start with Peter.
My big thing to people is to be as humble as possible and get as many eyes on the project as possible, and see, like, because sometimes people don't see, like, we always told that you're in the aquarium and you're swimming around, and sometimes you need to step out of the aquarium and be able to see what's happening. So to me, you have to be humble. Like, you don't know everything, so be humble, but get people that you trust or people that you know to look at the project, to try to get every single angle or every single thought, and then be able to think about that and then make the best decisions possible. Because again, I sometimes get in this this focus of where I can't think outside the box, and sometimes it's good to get people saying, "Hey, look, did you think about that?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't." And it could save you thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So be humble, get people's eyes on the project, to be able to make the best decisions you possibly can.
Excellent.
No, well said. No, to piggyback, you definitely have to be humble. I tell Pete all the time, I definitely don't know everything. I don't even, pretend to try, but it definitely empowering people who do know and asking the right questions from professionals like Sue and Mick, and like leaders in our industry in the aquatics and the medical side, the physical therapy side. But also when you have kind of a sound philosophy and vision of the overall program and company that you truly buy into and believe in, it makes things a lot easier. If you know what your overall goals are and that end game where you want to be, and again, we're never going to be complacent. That end game is always that thing you keep reaching for. It's never a position that you're done at. So in that process, like when we were first, first couple of years, like you kind of had to be thrifty. We didn't have this endless piggy bank. So we had to make smart decisions. And what do we have now that we can buy, and how do we make this? Can we make it? Can we, be thrifty so we could do more with less? And that kind of mentality of always kind of knowing what our end goal is going to be and where we want to be as a program and organization, and then kind of building up those steps. I'm not gonna lie, those first couple steps are pretty hard to get up, but once you start getting past the first couple steps, things become a lot more easy as you build up, your reputation, and people start to really buy into what you're doing and what your vision is. And again, those relationships. This is a family-run organization, and we are invested with our relationships, and that makes it a lot easier when you can look your swimmers and your families in the eyes and, shoot them straight. And that really helps.
Excellent.
I know we've run over a little bit of time, but being that this is the first one, I have a question. You came into the Build a Pool with a mindset, and many, if not most, of the attendees at the Build a Pool are started from the team aspect. And then like yourself, they sort of turn over and they see the value. What was the most difficult going forward, learning about the other pillars and how you can incorporate them and embrace that side, the learn to swim, the therapy, the fitness, as much as you do the swim team?
I mean, for us, for me, it wasn't so hard. It was just to be able to recognize it, right? And so for us, it was keeping that philosophy of being humble, and we don't know everything. So when we sat down and we listened to you guys talk, we were all open. So when you started talking about the other pillars, to us, it just made perfect sense. We're like, oh my gosh, that is so smart. We need to do that. So once we figured out that's what we wanted to do and incorporate the 4 pillars, when we got close to finishing the building, our interview process changed. It wasn't just about coaches, it was about finding the right fits to be able to grow out those programs, the rehab, the fitness. So for me, you know, Tyler, when we brought him in the interview process, even though he was going as kind of like a coach interview, we started you know, in my mind, I was like, well, he has exercise physiology. He has a college professor that is phenomenal with the rehab piece and everything else. So to me, when Tyler walked out the building, I don't know if he knows this, but I was like, we're going to hire him. And some of the conversation was, well, he's young and stuff. I'm like, well, we can work on that. We need people that are passionate about what we're doing. You know, we're going to have this structure and the philosophy. So we're going to help him grow into this program. We're going to give him support, but we need people that have energy and are passionate about what they're doing, and then being able to give them the tools to just be able to go and run with it. But for us, it was understanding the pillars, which we had no idea. So for us to build a pool conference was unbelievable. And then being humble to be able to accept that in, and then finding the people, the right people to be able to maximize each one of those pillars going forward. So, and look, we don't have all the answers. We're still trying to figure out the rehab piece a little bit better. We have a great physical therapist, Laura Phillips, with Mosaic Physical Therapy. She is phenomenal person, but we're still trying to figure out and get more groundwork. But again, that goes with being humble. We have another Zoom call with someone who is one of the leading people in rehab. So we want to be able to say, hey, what are you doing that makes you so awesome? How can we get a piece of that? How can we change it to be able to be that piece? So again, being open and humble and being able to let people teach you, I think is really, really important. So to me, the Build a Pool conference, like I said, just opened our eyes, and it made sense to us. You know, those 4 pillars just made sense.